For 10 years, I thought my marriage to Chloe meant something. But it turned out she had just been riding my coattails, using my success while hating me the whole time. After I died, she didn't waste any time taking over my family's business and marrying Daniel, the man she claimed was her first love. But on their wedding day, things took a dramatic turn. Maya, the woman I was once engaged to, showed up and caused a massive explosion at the ceremony. Just before the fire consumed everything, Maya looked right at me, or where my soul might have been, and smiled. "He died," she said, her voice clear even over the chaos. "And you think you can just climb to the top? That's not happening." Then, suddenly, I wasn't watching flames anymore. I was back, 10 years earlier. My own hand was holding Chloe's. We were on our way to see Maya, specifically so I could break off our engagement. Maya looked at me with that familiar coolness, her expression unreadable. "Are you sure about this?" she asked calmly. "Breaking up with me for her? Alex, you know I don't take people back once they're gone." Her voice, so steady and cold, cut through the fog in my head. I was still reeling from the memory of the explosion, the intense heat of the flames that felt like they could scorch my very soul, even after death. I remembered Maya, standing surrounded by fire, a gun in her hand, pulling the trigger with a mocking smile. "He's dead," her memory echoed. "Letting you all rise effortlessly? When does such good fortune exist?" In that instant, it felt like invisible chains holding me snapped. Something clicked. I finally understood my past life. It had played out like one of those twisted stories where the main character redeems himself, only I hadn't been the hero. I had been the villain. I remembered setting my sights on Chloe when she was just a struggling student. I'd used her mother's mounting medical bills to pressure her, forcing her into a relationship by controlling her financial aid. She felt humiliated by my use of money and hated me deeply for years. Even after we got married, she schemed behind my back, aiming to take over my company while secretly staying in touch with Daniel. She manipulated situations, drove me to the brink of insanity, and eventually watched me end up in a mental hospital before I ultimately took my own life by jumping from the roof. After my death, she transformed herself into a wealthy widow and married Daniel. It finally hit me how wrong everything had gone. Maya and I had grown up together. We were practically inseparable. How had I ended up completely infatuated with Chloe the moment she appeared, discarding years of history with Maya? Snapping back to the present moment, I looked around the room. Both sets of parents were there, their faces showing a mix of confusion and concern. Maya sat on the couch, looking up at me, her eyes as sharp and perceptive as ever. And then the reality of the situation crashed down on me. Today was the day. The day I was supposed to break things off with Maya. This was meant to be a simple family gathering. But I had arrived late, bringing Chloe with me, and was about to announce my intention to end my engagement to Maya. "I never liked you." My past self's cruel words echoed in my memory. And now I have a girlfriend. "So you're here to break up with me for her?" Maya adjusted her glasses slightly, her gaze sweeping over Chloe with undisguised disdain. Chloe, never one to back down, squared her shoulders. "Feeling good about yourself? You're only better off because of your family background." "Better off?" Maya smirked, a trace of ridicule in her voice. "You should realize that if Alex hadn't brought you here, you wouldn't even have the chance to speak to me." That comment struck a nerve with Chloe, wounding her fragile pride. In my past life, seeing her tear-filled, humiliated eyes had made my heart ache. I had jumped in front of her, spewing thoughtless insults at Maya. I accused her of being pathetic and obsessive. I even dredged up a painful high school memory, falsely blaming her for a girl getting run over after writing me a love letter. "Seeing you makes me sick, Maya," I had spat. "Besides your background, how are you any better than Chloe?" I threw horrible words at her, yet Maya remained silent, like a statue. Finally, she had quietly agreed. Fine, let's break up. Alex, Chloe's icy voice cut through my thoughts now. Did you bring me here just to be humiliated? I dug my nails into my palm, trying to shake off the lingering confusion from this sudden return to the past. Her words sparked something, and I suddenly laughed. Humiliate you? Maya just stated the facts. You're someone I'd only play around with. You're not worth her wasting her breath. Don't think too highly of yourself, Chloe. A heavy silence fell over the living room. Everyone stared at me, clearly shocked by my sudden change. Maya lifted her head, the light catching her glasses. Behind them, her eyes, usually so steady, looked almost fragile, showing a hint of surprise. What did you say? Chloe looked completely mortified. I said, do you really think you can compare yourself to Maya? I let go of Chloe's hand, stepping back as if she were something unclean. She overlooks business deals we have together, and I let you provoke her on purpose? Get out! Chloe stared at me, stunned. Before she could react, the butler was already escorting her towards the door. Just as she was leaving, she turned back, her voice laced with threat. Alex, I'm not someone you can just order around. Next time, say, even if you kneel and beg, I won't take you back. Her misplaced confidence almost made me laugh, but tears felt closer. I couldn't focus on Chloe right now. I hurried over to Maya's side and knelt down beside her. I remembered now. In the past, after this disastrous breakup, I learned that Maya had gone straight to the hospital that night. She had been dealing with severe stomach problems from a recent overseas business trip, but had cut it short to come back and see me. She had endured sitting on that couch, feeling unwell, just waiting for me. And I had met her only to break her heart and end our engagement. I had been such a complete jerk. Maya looked into my eyes, her expression shifting from surprise to a familiar, mocking understanding. Trying to make your girlfriend jealous by using me again, Alex? I couldn't blame her for thinking that. In the past, I had done incredibly stupid things, trying to provoke Maya just to prove to myself that Chloe cared about me. Now, I softened my voice, pretending to be clueless. Girlfriend? Maya, there's only you. I looked at her earnestly. I'm not feeling well. Can you come with me to the hospital? Maya furrowed her brow slightly. What's wrong with you? Got period cramps now too? Without thinking, I blurted out, Yeah, cramps! She gave me a suspicious sideways glance. Did you fry your brain? Because of Chloe, we had been distant, almost like strangers for a while. I hadn't expected her to show any concern for my health. A wave of unexpected emotion washed over me. My stomach did feel a bit unsettled, probably from the shock of it all. I carefully tugged at her sleeve, giving it a small shake. I need to get a shot. Can you come with me, please? Maya seemed lost in thought for a moment, then calmly replied, All right. In the car, I insisted on calling a driver, telling Maya she shouldn't drive while feeling unwell. She didn't argue, just sat beside me in the back seat, though there was a noticeable distance between us. Maya? I asked softly, Are you mad at me? She gave a small, self-deprecating smile. How would I dare be? Those few words filled me with an overwhelming sense of guilt. In my previous life, the predetermined storyline had completely controlled me. My parents couldn't change my mind. They just watched helplessly as I married Chloe. I poured my energy and my family's resources into supporting her company, working tirelessly. Maya's company was often in direct competition with Chloe's for projects, so I automatically saw her as an adversary. Over those 10 years, we barely saw each other, and when we did, I never had a kind word for her. Maya, I sniffled slightly, asking suddenly, It's been 2 months. Did you miss me? Linda glanced at me briefly, then remained silent. I felt awkward and tried to fill the silence. You didn't bring me a gift this time when you came back? Last time you called my gift dirty and threw it away, she replied coolly, turning her head to look out the window and closing her eyes, clearly signaling she didn't want to talk anymore. She was right. The last time she returned from a trip, she'd brought me a box filled with stunning raw rubies. Handing it over, she'd casually remarked, "Use these to make some small accessories. Stop associating with low-quality things." Both the expensive gift and her blunt words had deeply wounded Chloe's pride. To appease Chloe, I had thrown the box back at Maya, yelling, "I don't need your filthy stuff." Thinking about it now made me shut my eyes in regret, cursing the foolish narrative that had trapped me. Trying to bridge the physical gap between us in the car, I carefully inched closer to Maya. I leaned in, resting my chin gently on her shoulder, and whispered, "You know, Maya, there's something I need to tell you." My warm breath stirred a few strands of her hair near her ear. Maya suddenly opened her eyes and shifted away. "It doesn't matter what kind of act you and Chloe are putting on today," she said firmly, not letting me finish. "I won't listen." She paused. "And if you're really feeling unwell, just stay put." Her face was stern as she scolded me, but I noticed the tips of her ears and her neck flushing slightly red. There was a subtle awkwardness in her posture. "You won't," she persisted, her voice slightly hoarse. "Just sit still, don't worry about my issues." When the car stopped at the hospital entrance, the tension between us had eased somewhat. Remembering her struggles with stomach pain, I instinctively took her arm to help support her as she got out. Suddenly, an angry voice cut through the air. "Alex!" Turning around, I saw Daniel, Chloe's first love, glaring at me furiously. "You did it on purpose, didn't you?" he accused, his voice shaking. "You stopped Aunt Helen's medication to force Chloe to submit to you." His eyes filled with tears as he looked past me towards Chloe, who had appeared nearby. "You promised me. You promised if I disappeared, you'd get that specialist to treat Helen. Are you going back on your word now?" Chloe quickly hurried past me and pulled Daniel behind her, lowering her gaze. "It's my fault, Alex," she said softly. "I'm not mad about what happened earlier today. Just please don't make things difficult for Daniel and my mom. I'll always listen to you." Then it clicked. In my past life, it was actually through Maya's connections that we had managed to get the renowned specialist for Helen. Before I even had a chance to explain anything, Maya withdrew her arm from mine. A mocking smile played on her lips, her eyes turning cold and knowing. "So, this is why you wanted me at the hospital, huh, Alex?" Her face wore that brittle expression I knew too well, the same look she gave me every time we fought over Chloe. Back then, blinded by the narrative, I found her stance incredibly irritating. Now, the thought pained me deeply. "No?" I denied instinctively, but she wasn't looking at me. Her gaze was fixed on Chloe. "If you think so little of me," Maya said sharply to Chloe, "then prove your own worth. Stop dragging my fiancé into this charade. Aren't you ashamed?" Chloe's jaw clenched, humiliation flashing in her eyes. "Maya, don't think you're so high and mighty. One day you'll regret saying these words." Without another word, Maya turned and walked towards the hospital entrance. As I moved to follow her, Chloe grabbed my arm. "Alex," she began, looking down, her voice soft, raspy, and pleading. "It's all my fault. Please don't be mad." Her cold touch sent a shiver down my spine as memories from my past life flooded back, the distinct feeling of a venomous snake coiling around me. "Don't touch me!" I spat, yanking my arm free from her grasp. "Disgusting!" Chloe looked stunned, clearly not expecting this reaction. Before, no matter how angry I got, I would always soften when she acted vulnerable. "Alex." She tried to speak again, but I cut her off sharply. "You always claimed my money insulted you, right? Fine. Transfer the $60,000 I paid for your mother's treatment back into my account within 3 days. Show me just how independent you really are." Leaving a shocked Chloe standing there, I ran to catch up with Maya at the hospital entrance. "Maya!" I was out of breath as I caught her sleeve. Before I could say more, she turned to face me. "Alex, we do have some history," she said coldly, trying to pull her sleeve away, but I held on tight. "But that doesn't give you the right to constantly push me to back down for Chloe without any limits." "It has nothing to do with her," I insisted. "All right, I admit it. I didn't come to the hospital because of a stomachache. I wanted to bring you here. Your stomach's acting up again, isn't it? Maya, don't think I don't know. You never eat properly when you're out traveling for business deals." She looked at me, startled. Her eyes scanned my face, trying to gauge if I was telling the truth. Seeing her expression soften slightly, I pressed on, practically dragging her towards the examination room. The doctor looked over her report with a frown. "Chronic gastritis," he stated seriously. "You need to be very careful with your diet, especially when you feel discomfort. Don't just try to tough it out. Come to the hospital immediately. Let's start with 2 days of IV drip therapy." Sunlight streamed through the window, filling the private hospital room once the doctor left. When it was just Maya and me, the air grew quiet. I ordered some plain porridge for delivery, then carefully cooled a spoonful before bringing it to her lips. Maya kept her eyes down, seemingly lost in thought. "The doctor said you should eat something," I reminded her gently. "If you don't, the IV might make you feel sick later." She finally looked up at me, her eyes catching the sunlight, sparkling like clear water. "Okay," she whispered, finally opening her mouth to accept the porridge. After she had eaten about half the bowl, Maya signaled for me to put it down. "My phone?" I passed it to her with a puzzled look, watching as she quickly typed in a string of numbers and showed them to me. "What's this?" I asked. "Dr. Fong's number, that tumor specialist you've been trying to reach." I looked up sharply, meeting Maya's pale face and the faint, bitter smile playing around her lips. I suddenly understood. She still thought I had brought her here with an ulterior motive, still believing it was all about getting something for Chloe. "You brought me to the hospital," she said quietly, "so I give you what you want. Now we're even. I don't want the next time you come asking me for something related to her to bring up today, saying that watching me eat made you sick. Alex, I'm human too." The sunlight slanted across the room, casting her usually aloof expression in a rare, vulnerable light. A tightness constricted my chest, making it hard to speak. I remembered her words from 3 months ago. Chloe's new studio had been competing for a project, and Maya, representing the client, was the final decision-maker. I had gone to plead with her, even cooking her a meal and bringing gifts. When Maya seemed receptive, I asked, "Could you let Chloe's team handle that project?" Maya's smile had vanished instantly. She set down her chopsticks, looking straight at me. "So, you came here today for Chloe as well?" A coldness entered her voice. "People who are truly capable don't need connections to win projects. Go back. I've reviewed the proposal and made my decision. I won't choose her." She stood up, pulled out my chair, and showed me the door. I lost my temper, pointing angrily at her. "If it weren't for Chloe, I wouldn't even want to see you. Just watching you eat the food I made makes me sick." My eyes blurred with sudden tears. I felt a hand gently reach out to brush the moisture away, and I realized I was crying now, in the present. Maya quickly withdrew her hand. "No need to feel wronged," she said softly. "After today, I won't look for you anymore. Alex, we're even now." Given my past behavior, it was completely understandable that she didn't trust me. I tried to convince myself of that while struggling to hold back my tears. Looking earnestly at Maya, I managed to say, "I'm sorry." She seemed startled. "You can't force feelings you don't have. You don't need to apologize. When we get back from the hospital today, I'll explain everything to our parents. We'll call off." Her words were cut off as I suddenly leaned in and kissed her. Maya's eyes widened, staring at me in disbelief. I awkwardly lingered on her lips for a moment before pulling back slightly, still holding her hand, catching my breath. No. No calling it off. I steadied myself and continued, speaking sincerely. Maya, believe it or not, the whole situation with Chloe wasn't what I truly wanted. I brought you to the hospital today because you looked unwell, and I was genuinely worried about you. She looked down, her expression hidden beneath thick lashes, her emotions turbulent and unclear. Is this just some new trick? I swallowed the bitterness rising in my throat. We've known each other our entire lives, Maya. You can't possibly not believe me. If you don't, I leaned in again, I'll kiss you again. This time Maya pressed her forehead against mine, stopping me. Her breath was warm and close against my skin, her voice slightly hoarse. Alex, do you even know what you're doing right now? I nodded, my heart pounding. I knew exactly what I was doing. I was finally trying to fix the biggest mistake of my past life. Referencing that night felt like lighting a fuse, burning away the last vestiges of restraint for both of us. On the night after our final high school exams, my family threw a celebratory party for me. After a few glasses of champagne, feeling bold and tipsy, I had drunkenly dragged Maya into an empty room. What does kissing feel like? I demanded. She had watched me quietly. Alex, you're drunk. Don't change the subject, I'd insisted, slightly annoyed. If you don't tell me, I'll just find someone else to ask. My words were cut off as Maya suddenly kissed me. She smelled faintly of lemongrass, just like the perfume I had given her for her birthday that year. Her lips were soft, and the fingers resting on my neck felt incredibly hot. My mind went blank, overwhelmed by the sudden heat and sensation. I clung to her shirt, feeling completely lost in the moment. Linda's voice, low and husky, held a hidden desire. That's what a kiss feels like. Back then, things between us were so good, so uncomplicatedly close. I had always assumed that after graduation I would marry Maya, but soon after starting college, the first time I saw Chloe, it was like being caught in a whirlwind I couldn't escape. Everything changed. Wait, how did we end up kissing again right now? Did the IV drip really get messed up? A nurse came in just then to check on Maya and redress her IV bandage. Don't move around too much, she reminded gently. There's one more bottle left. Maya nodded calmly. I sat beside her, rubbing my ears, which still felt warm. After the nurse left, I whispered an apology. Sorry about that. I got so carried away with the kiss earlier, I must have pushed on your arm and shifted the needle. The bandage was soaked in blood. She glanced at me. No need to apologize. So, I asked tentatively, do you believe me now? It depends on how you act from now on, she replied. Her words were still cautious, but her tone had definitely softened. As the month drew to a close, Maya needed to travel to a neighboring city for a business meeting. I went back to attending my classes, but I found myself constantly sneaking quick text messages to her, just wanting her to know that she was on my mind. Her birthday was coming up soon. That afternoon, I decided to go to the mall to find her a gift. While browse, I unexpectedly spotted a familiar figure. It was Chloe. We hadn't spoken since my harsh words at the hospital, and frankly, I had been enjoying the peace. Seeing her now, especially when her studio should have been incredibly busy, felt wrong. She was following a young woman into a rather upscale garden restaurant. That struck me as odd. A sense of unease washed over me. I quickly moved forward, trying to get a closer look without being seen. As I entered the restaurant, the woman Chloe was meeting turned her head slightly. It felt like being struck by lightning. I froze. The woman was Vanessa. In my past life, Vanessa had been instrumental in helping Chloe ruin both Maya's career and my family. I quickly ducked behind some decorative greenery, trying to stay hidden while eavesdropping on their conversation. I could only catch fragments. Maya is already in London, Vanessa was saying. It seems she hasn't realized the problems with that project yet. Chloe scoffed coldly. I want more than just her business deals. I want her life. In my past life, I had often wondered why Maya, who was undoubtedly brilliant at running her family's business, kept losing out to Chloe. Eventually, Chloe had managed to take control of most of Maya's family assets. Was it just some kind of main character advantage Chloe possessed? Did she have inside information? What exactly was this project in London they were talking about? Countless questions swirled in my mind. I desperately wanted to talk to Maya, to warn her, but I was afraid that confronting Chloe or Vanessa too soon might just accelerate the original chain of events, potentially pushing Maya towards that same doomed ending even faster. After wrestling with my thoughts, I decided the best course of action was to gather more intelligence from Chloe first. I needed to understand their plan to prevent Maya from walking into danger because of the lingering influence of that past storyline. Once I got home, I asked the housekeeper to prepare some nourishing soup and took it to the hospital, ostensibly to visit Chloe's mother, Helen. As I expected, I ran into Chloe there. She shot me a cold glance but didn't say anything. Adopting a submissive tone, I tugged at her sleeve, trying my best to mimic the spoiled yet vulnerable behavior I used to exhibit. "You're not still mad at me, are you?" I began tentatively. "I'm really upset too. You promised you wouldn't have any more contact with Daniel, yet there he was at the hospital, yelling at me. Who does he think he is?" A flicker of disgust crossed Chloe's eyes, but she quickly masked it. "Well, I've already gotten rid of him," she replied flatly. "He was just worried about my mom's health that day. It won't happen again." "It better not," I said firmly. "Don't forget, I'm your boyfriend." I paused, then added casually, "By the way, I spoke to Maya. She mentioned that a specialist might be available to operate on your mom soon, but it could take some time. Apparently, she's tied up with some big investment project that hit a snag recently." Chloe's throat moved slightly as she swallowed, turning to look at me more intently. "What kind of snag?" Pretending to recall the details vaguely, I said, "Something about land issues in the suburbs, I think." For the rest of the day, Chloe suddenly became much friendlier towards me. She kept subtly probing for more information about Maya, trying to figure out if Maya suspected anything. By acting as if I genuinely wanted to reconcile with her, I finally managed to get myself invited to a dinner she was having with Vanessa and some others. Before leaving for the dinner, a wave of anxiety washed over me. I tried calling Maya to let her know where I was going, but her phone went straight to voicemail. Thinking it through, I decided this was too important an opportunity to pass up. The dinner was held in a private, secluded dining room. Vanessa raised her glass to me with a practiced smile. "Mr. Alex, I'm looking into investing in Chloe's studio. I'm Vanessa. Perhaps we'll have the chance to work together someday." Thinking about how she and Chloe had systematically destroyed Maya's career and taken over my family's business made bile rise in my throat. But I forced a pleasant expression and played along. After a few drinks had loosened everyone up, Vanessa casually brought up the subject. "I heard you and Maya were childhood sweethearts, even engaged at one point?" "Engaged?" I scoffed, glancing towards Chloe, forcing myself to sound utterly sincere. "That's just gossip our parents spread around. My whole life, the only person I've ever truly liked is Chloe. If it weren't for her, I'd never tolerate being around someone I despise as much as Maya." As I spoke, I vividly pictured Chloe's and Vanessa's triumphant faces from my past, fueling the intensity of my feigned hatred. My performance was convincing enough that everyone laughed. "Alex certainly knows how to see Maya for who she is," Vanessa chuckled, leaning in conspiratorially. "Do you mind sharing why she suddenly went to London?" The alcohol was starting to take its toll. I stood up unsteadily. "Excuse me," I mumbled. "I'm feeling a bit sick. Need to use the bathroom." I stumbled towards the door and pulled it open. A cool breeze carrying a faint, familiar scent of lemongrass hit me. The soft hallway lighting illuminated a face standing right outside the door. Startled, I snapped back to reality. It was Maya. Her expression was completely blank. When she saw me, her lips curled faintly into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Alex," she said, her voice devoid of warmth. "So this is how it is." The warm, inviting glow of the hallway lights felt strangely cold against Maya's pale face. She had heard everything. Amidst the jumble of smells and sensations, a thread of clarity suddenly emerged through my drunken haze. The alcohol's effects vanished instantly. My fingers trembled on the door handle as a wave of dread washed over me. "Maya," I called out instinctively. "Better not call me that," she interrupted coolly. "Might just disgust myself again." She cast a disappointed, icy glance over me, then looked past my shoulder at Chloe and Vanessa standing behind me in the room. "You want to know why I went to London?" She addressed them directly. "Why don't you just ask me?" She let out a short, sharp chuckle, her voice taking on a decisive edge. "You think planting a few spies in the company subsidiary will actually sway my judgment? Your tactics are as laughable as you both are." With that, she turned sharply and walked away down the hall. Inside the room, Chloe's face looked grim. She suddenly slammed a plate down on the table. "Feeling smug, huh?" she muttered furiously. "Think that's all I've got planned? One day I'll watch her die right in front of me." Deep down, I felt an urge to slap her, remembering the original plot's devastating outcome. But I still didn't dare underestimate the situation or act rashly. Forcing a smile, I said to Chloe and Vanessa, "I'll go catch up with Maya first, see what else she might know." Then I turned and quickly left the room. I caught up to her downstairs just as she was getting into her car. "Maya," I panted, speaking quickly, "listen to me. I only came to that dinner tonight to find out what Chloe and the others are planning against you." Through the half-open car window, I met Maya's calm, deadpan eyes, and my voice faltered. She rested her chin on her hand, looking almost amused, even smiling slightly. She murmured. "You're probably about to say it's because you like me. You're worried about my safety, and you're afraid I can't handle them alone, right?" Panic and anxiety bubbled up inside me like sea foam. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to calm down and explain seriously. "Yes, I know you don't trust me right now, but Chloe isn't as simple as you think. If her tactics were really just this basic, I wouldn't—" "Alex," Maya cut me off abruptly. Through the slowly closing window, I saw her eyes, still beautiful, but seemingly fractured, like shattered glass. "You can't rely on my love for you to continuously deceive me without any boundaries. From now on, let's not stay in touch." She finished speaking, and the window slid shut completely, blocking her from view. The sleek black Rolls-Royce pulled away from the curb without a moment's hesitation, leaving me standing there, alone on the sidewalk. The cool night breeze sent a sudden shiver through me. In the previous life, after I had married Chloe, Maya had repeatedly warned me about Chloe's hidden ambitions, telling me to be careful. No matter what she said, I never believed her. I'd even laughed cruelly in her face. "You're just jealous of Chloe," I'd sneered. "Jealous that she came from an ordinary background and now stands above you. You're full of lies. I won't believe a single word you say." I remembered that time vividly. Maya standing before me, impeccably dressed, but her eyes reflecting deep hurt. Coming back to my senses, I realized I was already in my own car. I told the driver to head to Maya's place. However, she didn't go back to her family home or her own apartment. The car drove around for what felt like half the city before finally stopping in front of her company's headquarters. I looked up and saw a light still on in the top-floor office. Remembering the resistant look on her face just before the car window closed, I felt a sudden surge of cowardice. I quickly went to a nearby convenience store, bought a can of beer, and downed it quickly for some liquid courage. Once the familiar buzz began to creep in, I headed into the building, took the elevator up, and pressed the button for the top floor. Maya's office suite was on the 39th floor, offering considerable privacy, but she had never put up any defenses against me. When I pushed open the main office door, the large space was empty. From the closed-off adjacent resting room, I could faintly hear the sound of running water. Beyond that, there was only the subtle scent of lemongrass mixed with a faint, unmistakable metallic hint of blood. Blood? My heart tightened. Images from my past life flashed through my mind: chaos, fire, loss. Without thinking, I pushed open the door to the resting room. Just as I opened it, the sound of water stopped abruptly in the ensuite bathroom. Maya walked out, towel drying her wet hair. She stopped short upon seeing me standing there. Alex? My gaze involuntarily fixed on her. I had always known Maya was beautiful, but most of the time, her cold, composed expression made her seem distant and unapproachable. Now, however, the lingering water mists softened her features, making her look almost ethereal. I noticed several layers of bandage wrapped around her left forearm. They were wet now, and some reddish-brown blood was faintly showing through. She really was injured. "Get out," she commanded sharply, perhaps noticing my intense gaze. She closed her eyes briefly, but her voice lacked its usual authority. Maybe it was the alcohol, or maybe just instinct, but I blinked slowly. Instead of leaving, I took a few steps closer, closing the door firmly behind me. "You're hurt," I said softly, stepping directly in front of her. "Maya, how did this happen? And your wound is bleeding again. It needs to be redressed." "It's just a small injury," Maya replied plainly, avoiding my eyes. "I can handle it myself. It's none of your concern." She paused, then added pointedly, "Mr. Alex, you shouldn't be in my private office. You do have a girlfriend, after all." I didn't reply with words. I just pulled her into a kiss. The lingering smell of alcohol on my breath mixed with her nearness, cutting off whatever else she might have said. "Don't talk," I murmured somewhat incoherently against her lips. "Nothing you're saying right now is what I want to hear." Slowly, as our lips met again, the heat between us intensified rapidly. We stumbled backwards, falling onto the large bed nearby. The bath towel she was holding slipped off in the movement. After the long, deep kiss finally ended, I braced myself on Maya's shoulders, breathing heavily. I saw a dangerous glimmer in her usually guarded eyes. "Is it for her again this time?" Maya struggled to ask, her voice slightly breathless. "Of course not. It's for myself," I replied instantly. With my mind muddled from the lingering drunkenness and the intensity of the kiss, some words escaped without conscious thought. "When you see your fiancée just after she showers, having some indescribable thoughts about her, that's quite normal, isn't it?" My fingertips, still slightly damp, caressed the faint blush rising on her skin, inadvertently stirring more than just memories. "Besides," I added, my voice dropping lower, "I've thought about this since I was 18, imagining it. With you, Maya. Only ever with you." The air in the room went completely still for a moment. Then, everything seemed to turn upside down. The world dissolved into a chaotic blur where only the two of us existed. The leftover water droplets on our skin evaporated quickly from our rising body heat. The overhead ceiling light seemed to sway wildly above us, like a small boat tossed about on stormy waves. Before long, the only sound in the room was the ragged, hurried rhythm of our breathing. Strangely, my mind drifted back to when I was 18. To that night after finishing exams when I got drunk and secretly kissed Maya on the balcony. No matter how much I had tried then, she had only allowed that one kiss. "Alex, we're still young," she had whispered against my ear, her own body burning with barely contained restraint. Maya? Just saying her name felt different. I was startled by the raspy, unfamiliar sound of my own voice. Maya paused her movements slightly, looking down at me, but her gaze, filled with complex emotions like a thick fog, left absolutely no room for regrets. Outside, unnoticed, rain began to pour heavily against the windows. Inside the room, humid steam rose gently with the soft light. Maya held my head, her touch alternating between gentle strokes and a forceful grip. "Ben," she murmured, using my old name unintentionally, perhaps. I suddenly remembered the cut on her arm and felt a surge of worry. I tried to sit up to check it. "It's nothing serious," she insisted. Yet the strengthening grip of her hand pulled me back down. "I told you it's just a small wound." Maya's long fingers tangled in my sweaty hair. Her refreshing lemongrass scent began to mix with mine, and the lingering smell of alcohol, blending together into something intoxicating and uniquely ours in that moment. It was already 4 a.m. when I managed to focus enough to look back at her properly. "But your wound really needs a bandage change," I insisted weakly. "And how did you get hurt, anyway?" Maya suddenly went silent. In that suffocating quiet, a dreadful realization dawned on me. You wouldn't think I'm trying to probe you for information about Tina, would you?" She looked at me, her expression clearly implying, "Yes, that's exactly what I thought." Feeling both sad and a little angry, I said, "We've already done this. I told you I'm worried about you. So I asked Chloe about their plans against you. Why won't you trust me?" "I trusted you once," Maya said lightly, her voice flat. "These past 2 years, I've trusted you many times, Alex." My throat felt tight, like it was closing up. I blinked, my eyes stinging slightly as I heard her continue. "But whether I trust you or not isn't really important anymore. From now on, no matter how smooth your words are, I'll never let you go." She paused. "As for Chloe, she's not as simple as you think." "I know," I blurted out. Seeing Maya's slight frown, I took a deep breath. "If I told you that in a past life, I actually died because of her, would you believe me?" The rain beat relentlessly against the window panes. There was no moonlight visible, only the dim artificial lighting inside the room. Underneath its soft glow, Maya appeared completely frozen. "A past life?" she whispered. "Alex, have you ever thought maybe we're just characters in a book?" After hesitating for only a moment, I decided to tell her everything. I described the terrifying, seemingly inescapable pull of the original plot. "I don't know if it was just a nightmare or a genuine past life," I explained, my voice trembling slightly. "In short, in that other life, as soon as Chloe appeared, it felt like I could only see her. Everyone else faded away." I recounted the 10 years that followed, the downward spiral of my life. That final project, it cost my parents their lives and allowed Chloe to take over all of my family's assets. She told me she hated me, that those 10 years by my side were the most degrading experience imaginable. My voice choked up. Afterwards, she claimed the shock of it all drove me insane. She had me committed to a mental hospital. Even after all this time had passed, even after everything had seemingly started over, those 6 months in the asylum remained my darkest nightmare. Being constantly bound, forced medication that clouded my thoughts, the overwhelming lack of clarity, and the regular, terrifyingly deadly electric shock treatments. Eventually, my voice quivered. Once I had a moment of clarity, I managed to escape my restraints, and I jumped off the hospital roof. My trembling words were silenced as Maya suddenly pulled me into a tight embrace, her warmth enveloping me. She gently stroked my hair. "It was just a dream," I heard her murmur softly against my ear. "I won't let that happen." Closing my eyes, I vividly recalled the image of the flames consuming everything at Chloe and Daniel's wedding. Even if I couldn't fight the plot's pull in the dream, Maya's voice echoed from that fiery memory when I couldn't save her. As Chloe reached the peak of her happiness, I sent her straight to hell. Maya's familiar lemongrass scent filled my senses, and the overwhelming sleepiness from a sleepless, emotionally draining night finally overtook me. I soon drifted off in her arms. In my dream, I returned to the past life again. For a decade, Maya and I had been like fire and water, bitter enemies. Whenever we met in public, I used the harshest, cruelest words imaginable, sparing no expense to tear her down and humiliate her. Yet somehow, she still always wore that same lemongrass-scented perfume. Alive, I had hated her too much to notice or care about such details. It wasn't until that final moment, watching the flames engulf her, that I finally understood. Because that perfume, it was the scent of the last gift the 18-year-old Alex, the one who existed before meeting Chloe, had ever given Maya. When I woke up, the first thing I did was insist on taking Maya back to the hospital to have her wound properly re-bandaged. No water near the wound, and don't strain this arm at all for at least 7 days, the doctor instructed seriously, after examining and treating it. Inside the car on the way back, I turned to Maya. "Can you tell me now how you really got hurt?" She looked directly into my eyes in the dim morning light, sighed softly, and said, "It was just a small accident at one of the project sites." I bit my lip. "Is it related to Chloe?" Maya gently patted my arm. "Don't worry about it. The only way she can truly hurt me is through you. Just stay away from her, Alex. Leave the rest to me." But I didn't want that. I grabbed her hand, looking at her seriously. "Maya, I've died once already. So, in a way, you could say I'm actually older than you now. Whatever you're planning against Chloe, let me be involved, okay?" She was silent for a moment, then quietly replied, "Okay, Alex, I won't interfere with your decisions anymore, but you should really try to stay away from Chloe." I nodded, then felt a bit playful, despite the seriousness of the situation. "Are you worried I'll get enchanted by Chloe's protagonist halo again?" Maya calmly nodded, but behind her lowered lashes, I saw a flicker of vulnerability. She was scared. I guess even Maya, the formidable woman who started taking over her family's massive company at the age of 16, had her own fears. I gently cupped Maya's face in my hands and said seriously, "Maya, we've known each other since the day I was born. When I was a sickly kid, constantly in and out of the hospital, you were the one who brought me flowers and comic books every single day. When I was 14 and hospitalized again, you brought me homemade soup. After that kiss when we were 18, I've been dreaming about you ever since. Without the mind-bending twists and turns of that original plot, I wouldn't have given Chloe a second glance. I've always loved you, Maya. Only you." This confession seemed to be the key that unlocked Pandora's box, suddenly releasing all the pent-up emotions between us. With the soundproof divider up, separating us from the driver, Maya suddenly reached out and kissed me fiercely. In the enclosed space of the car, the kiss was intense, causing a tingling pain on my lips, even numbing my tongue slightly from the force of her need. I suddenly remembered the doctor's advice. "Wait," I pulled back slightly. "Your injuries. You can't be too forceful." After that day, Chloe didn't contact me for a long time. I discreetly asked around at the hospital and found out that she had somehow managed to find another oncologist through different connections to perform her mother's surgery. That was probably her protagonist charm at work again, I thought wryly. As graduation approached, I decided to start interning early at my family's company. Since our families had long-standing business ties, this meant I would have more legitimate reasons and opportunities to interact with Maya regularly. "I plan to visit Chloe's studio later today," I mentioned casually as I sat across from Maya during a quick breakfast meeting. I took a bite of my bagel and continued, "According to our previous life's timeline, by this point, we had already had a major falling out, I had started using family resources to help Chloe build her network, and I even snatched a crucial development project away from you." Maya glanced up at me from her papers, then quickly looked down again, her emotions momentarily unguarded behind her lashes. I quickly added, "I'm just going to test how far her current plans have progressed. Don't worry. Wait for me at home for dinner tonight, okay?" Chloe's studio wasn't far from the downtown area. Given her initial lack of connections and resources, there was no way she could have afforded such a prime location without my persistent financial help in the past life. As I walked into the reception area, I saw Daniel standing near her desk. Chloe herself sat before him, her head lowered, positioned in a way that made her look almost wrapped in his embrace, a suggestive pose I recognized all too well. It was just like the last time, and the countless times before that in my previous life, when I had discovered evidence of Chloe and Daniel's suspiciously close relationship. Yet she had never confessed to anything, always managing to twist the situation. We clashed numerous times over this, until things eventually spiraled completely out of control. Whenever I became hysterical with jealousy and suspicion, Chloe would just stand aside, watching me with a tired, resigned look on her face. Later, those very outbursts became part of the evidence used to prove my supposed depression and history of humiliating her. Snapping back sharply from those painful memories, I asked coldly, "What are you two doing?" They both seemed to freeze for a moment. Then, Chloe quickly straightened up, adjusted her slightly wrinkled clothes, and looked at me. Though her words were directed at Daniel, her gaze was fixed on me. "You should leave first." Daniel shot a resentful glance my way before quickly exiting the office. Chloe turned back to me, her expression settling into that familiar, frosty mask. "Haven't you chosen Maya already? Why are you looking for me now?" She was still trying the same old manipulative tricks. If I were the original plot-driven Alex, I would probably be apologizing profusely right now, insisting that I only loved her, and then going out of my way to help her studio secure some new deal just to prove that some things only I could provide for her. Instead, I lifted my chin slightly. Recently, there's a new urban development project at my family's company. It was initially planned as a joint venture with Maya's family. But I paused deliberately. "I want to choose you instead." Chloe's eyes shot up to look directly at me, her throat moving almost imperceptibly. I allowed a small smirk to play on my lips. "But that project will take a long time and involve massive amounts of funding. I need to see how much your studio can actually handle first." That evening, I recounted my visit to Chloe's studio to Maya, telling her everything I had observed. Piecing it together with what Maya had previously uncovered, I voiced my growing suspicion. "I suspect that because I was reborn, the plotline has somehow accelerated. I think Chloe is already connected with Victor, the emerging mob boss in Southtown. That's happening way earlier than it did in the past life." I frowned, thinking about the implications. If she's already collaborating with someone like that, it's like making a deal with a tiger. Maya, who had been flipping through some contracts, paused and looked up at me. "That's because Vanessa can no longer help her." I was stunned. "The project in London?" "It involved them planting a mole in our subsidiary," Maya explained calmly. "They were planning to steal account books and fabricate evidence to frame us. Vanessa and her key people are all behind bars now." She turned a page in her contract, continuing in her usual matter-of-fact manner. "Chloe's company is still in its infancy. She's too weak on her own. She has to rely on others." A sudden realization hit me. "You orchestrated that? Getting Vanessa arrested?" Maya didn't disagree, her silence a clear acknowledgement. I blinked, then suddenly surged forward and hugged her tightly. "Maya, you're amazing!" She caught my wandering hand as it strayed lower, suddenly looking serious. "Alex, you shouldn't get involved in what happens next." "Why not?" I asked, pulling back slightly. Because it's dangerous, she replied, her brows furrowing slightly. Chloe's identity isn't as simple as you think. Otherwise, someone like Victor wouldn't agree to partner with her so easily. I was taken aback. What do you mean? You said, in our past life, I chose a very intense way to end things with them. Maya's tone was steady but held a weirdly chilling undertone. It must be because by then, there was simply no other way left for me. That night I dreamt again. It was the past life. During the 6th year of my turbulent marriage to Chloe, at some lavish banquet, I saw her standing intimately close with Victor's son, Julian. For some inexplicable reason, driven by the plot's influence perhaps, I was consumed by insane jealousy. In a fit of irrationality, I actually arranged to have Julian kidnapped. Predictably, it backfired spectacularly. I ended up being captured by Victor's men instead. A cold blade pressed against my neck, trailing slowly down my body. I genuinely thought I was going to die right there. Finally, Chloe walked in, an indifferent look on her face, and somehow negotiated my release, taking me away from the gang's hideout. Because of this incident, I had always believed, in my past life, that despite her cold exterior, she must have had some hidden feelings for me deep down. But this dream felt different, like watching a movie that suddenly switched scenes. I saw another room. A scar-faced Victor sat there, and beside him, expressionless, was Maya. In front of them was a large screen, frozen on the scene where the dagger was being held to my throat. Victor chuckled. So, Maya, have you thought about my proposal? Cooperating with me? Maya looked at the image of my tear-stained, terrified face on the screen, her own beautiful eyes showing absolutely no emotion. After a few agonizing seconds, she looked away from the screen and said flatly, I agree. Let Alex leave here safely. Victor smiled, satisfied. Maya, you are smart. It's a shame, though. If you had agreed to become my woman, we could have been family. Maya replied coldly, I don't need that. After she left the room, Chloe and Julian walked in. Julian sighed with a hint of regret. Dad, did Maya really agree to work with us? Victor nodded. Her choice in men is terrible. She actually likes that weakling Alex more than marrying into our family. He turned and glanced at Chloe, smiling. Chloe, my dear, when are you planning to marry Daniel? I snapped awake, my heart pounding. Darkness surrounded me, with only a thin sliver of moonlight peeking through the heavy curtains. The dream still felt incredibly real, lingering vividly in my mind. Connecting it with all the other fragmented pieces of information I had gathered since my return, a hidden truth from the past life rapidly formed in my thoughts. Alex? A slight movement beside me alerted Maya. She must have sensed my distress. She gently hugged me from behind, pausing for a moment before asking with concern, You're trembling. What's wrong? I knew. Closing my eyes, I breathed in her familiar, fresh lemongrass scent, trying to ground myself. I know, Maya, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. Chloe, she's Victor's legitimate daughter, isn't she? Victor only agreed to work with her now because they've already recognized each other as father and daughter. Maya didn't seem surprised or particularly concerned about Chloe's true identity. She just hugged me tighter. What did you dream about? She asked softly. I turned and hugged her upper body tightly, my voice choking up. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Maya. I finally understood. In the past life, under Chloe and Victor's ruthless machinations, I had become a pawn, a hostage used against Maya. Her business, her reputation, everything she had worked for became tainted by forced association with organized crime. That's why, in the end, she chose that devastating path to go down in flames, taking everyone with her at that grand, fatal wedding. Luckily for us, Maya murmured against my hair, in this life, you've woken up from the trap of the original plot. There's still time. Once I calmed down enough to speak coherently, I told Maya about the entire dream. Her hand resting on my back suddenly tightened. Her voice, when she spoke, carried a chilling coldness I hadn't heard before. "Julian, huh? I get it now." Under my deliberate, albeit risky, guidance, I quickly facilitated a major project collaboration involving Chloe's studio, my family's company, and, inevitably, Victor's involvement. Even though it was still relatively early in the timeline compared to the past life, and Victor hadn't yet gained full control over the entire seaside city's underworld, as he eventually did, the project was intentionally structured with numerous exploitable loopholes and potential illegalities. Maya meticulously collected evidence of all these irregularities, preparing to use them to bring Chloe and Victor to justice when the time was right. However, recently, Maya had abruptly stopped contacting me. That afternoon when I drove over to her company building, hoping to catch her, I saw a bright pink sports car parked ostentatiously near the entrance downstairs. The driver's door opened, and a familiar figure stepped out. I froze. It was Julian, looking several years younger than he had in my memories of the past life. I watched as he walked around to the passenger side and opened the door. Then Maya got out, smiling softly at him. Whatever she said made Julian laugh. He pulled a letter-sized envelope from his inner jacket pocket and handed it to her. Then he got back in his car and drove off. Maya stood there for a moment, her gaze scanning the area briefly. When her eyes swept over my parked car, she paused for just a fraction of a second. I was sure she recognized me, yet she calmly turned away and walked into the building, heading upstairs as if she hadn't seen anything at all. A wave of sourness, sharp and unpleasant, washed over me. Is this how Maya felt all those countless times she saw me fawning over Chloe? Shaking off the feeling, I got out of my car and quickly went upstairs, finding Maya already back in her office, seated behind her large desk. She looked up as I entered without knocking. "Why didn't you knock?" she asked coolly. I replied with matching sourness. "Does Julian need to knock when he comes to visit?" Maya paused, her expression unreadable. Then she quietly stood up and walked towards the adjacent private lounge area. Standing just inside the doorway, she looked back at me. "Come here." I walked over reluctantly. The moment I stepped fully into the lounge, the door closed swiftly behind me with a soft click. My back pressed against the cool, hard surface of the door as Maya moved close, enveloping me in her warmth. Her wet, demanding kisses trailed slowly from my lips up towards my ear. Maya knew me far too well, including exactly how I would react to her touch, my limits, and what every involuntary shiver meant. I felt like I was being tossed high up into the clouds, only to be suddenly dropped into an endless, warm ocean. "Maya?" I managed to whisper her name before being swept away again by another rising wave of blissful sensation. In the end, just before being completely submerged by the overwhelming pleasure, I heard her voice whisper huskily by my ear. "Have you checked completely now? I'm still all yours." Later, I found myself turning the envelope Julian had given Maya over and over in my hand. It turned out to be nothing more sinister than a formal invitation to his upcoming birthday party. As the main project lead representing my family's company, I had received an identical one. "It'll be dangerous," Maya said later, looking at me with those clear, glassy eyes. "I would prefer it if you don't go." "But will you listen to me if I told you not to go, Maya?" I countered honestly, shaking my head. "Nope." Then I quickly added, trying to sound logical. "Because technically we're supposed to be working together closely on this project now, and it seems to be going well. If I suddenly skip out on his birthday party for no apparent reason, it might raise suspicion." The argument was solid, even logical, and Maya couldn't really refute it. She held my gaze for a long moment, then leaned in and kissed me again, softly this time. "No matter what happens, Alex," she murmured against my lips, "remember, your safety comes first." always. Soon enough, the night of Julian's birthday party arrived. The project Alex, was involved in was actually a large-scale urban redevelopment initiative in collaboration with the local government, so a lot of powerful and influential people were in attendance. Chloe, being a partner in this joint venture thanks to my help, was successfully using the event to broaden her network considerably. I stood holding a drink, watching from a distance as Daniel followed Chloe around like a loyal puppy, his expression possessive. He must have sensed my gaze because he suddenly turned around and shot me a smug, challenging glance. Then, almost as if he were deliberately making a point, he wrapped Chloe's arm possessively in his. "You're more than welcome to keep such trash," I thought scornfully. Scanning the crowded ballroom, I noticed quite a few familiar faces among the guests. People who, in my past life, Chloe wasn't supposed to meet until many years later. Was everything happening earlier this time because of Maya's interventions behind the scenes? Just as I was trying to piece it all together, the guest of honor, Julian, made his grand entrance. He had his arm linked with his father, Victor's. On Julian's other side, smiling calmly and looking stunning, stood Maya. "Welcome, everyone, to my birthday party," Julian announced cheerfully, his eyes lingering on me for a moment with a subtle hint of satisfaction. A server rolled out a giant, elaborate three-tiered cake. After the ceremonial cutting, Julian and Maya began mingling with the guests, eventually making their way over to where I was standing. "Mr. Alex," Julian greeted me with a practiced smile, extending his hand. "Let's hope our future projects continue to be pleasant collaborations." He then turned slightly towards Maya. "Maya, I heard you were once quite close with Mr. Alex, even had some kind of childhood marriage promise?" Maya gave me a fleeting, almost imperceptible glance, then looked away indifferently. "Oh, that was just our parents joking around years ago," she dismissed lightly. "Nothing to be taken seriously. Besides," she added coolly, "Alex has someone else now. We have nothing to do with each other anymore." Even though I knew she was just playing a part, her words still made me grit my teeth involuntarily. After a moment, I forced a sneer. "Actually, I'm the one who should thank Maya for finally letting me go." With that curt exchange, she walked away with Julian, resuming their rounds. I held on to my drink, my knuckles white, and quickly spotted Chloe standing near the large garden windows at the far end of the ballroom. She was on the phone, and Daniel was nowhere in sight. I watched her expression gradually turn serious, then alarmed, presumably reacting to whatever was being said on the other end of the call. Just then, the night sky outside erupted with a dazzling display of fireworks, officially meant for Julian's birthday celebration. But the loud explosions perfectly masked the sudden sounds of a nearby gunfight. The raid on Victor's discovered hidden mob arsenal, just as planned. Recalling Maya's earlier warning about the potential danger, I calmly retreated towards a dimly lit corner, preparing to slip away unnoticed through the side garden path. Just as I was about to make my exit, a bloodied figure staggered in through the main ballroom doors, gasping, "Victor, our deal! It's been exposed!" Before anyone could react, a gunshot rang out sharply from somewhere inside the hall. Simultaneously, the massive crystal chandelier hanging overhead crashed violently to the floor, echoing with a thunderous boom. Then, darkness plunged the entire hall into chaos and panic. Wanting to avoid the pandemonium, I stayed hidden in my corner, watching as figures moved swiftly in the darkness, undercover police officers efficiently taking down Victor's armed men one by one amidst the screaming and confusion. "Alex!" Maya's voice finally reached my ears through the din. She slipped quickly to my side under the cover of darkness, whispering urgently, "Victor's power runs deep. There might be more of his people outside. Let's get out of here now." I nodded, feeling the built-up tension finally start to leave my body. We managed to weave our way through the chaotic crowd and reached the relative quiet of the outdoor garden. The night breeze carried a mixed scent of blooming flowers, but then I caught another whiff of something familiar, something disturbingly off. It felt like a chilling warning echoing from my other life. My eyes widened in sudden realization. "Maya, down!" I shoved her hard towards the ground, rolling us both away just as a hail of bullets ripped through the air, shredding the ground where we had been standing only a second before. I scrambled unsteadily to my feet, but a black pistol barrel was quickly aimed directly at me. "It's you," Chloe said coldly, holding the gun with a surprisingly steady hand. Her eyes, however, were filled with a volatile mix of anger and resentment. "If you claim to like me, Alex, why do you keep sabotaging my career and my chances to advance? If you truly admired me, you should be willing to give freely, asking for nothing in return. You claim to like me, but you only ever look down on me with pity. Alex, you make me sick." Even given this second chance at life, I was rendered utterly speechless by Chloe's shameless, twisted logic. So that's really how she saw things? No matter how much I tried to help her, she interpreted it as humiliation? Did she honestly believe my assistance should have come without any strings attached, simply handed over? Did I really look like such a chump to her? Her warped perspective infuriated me. "We barely know each other," I retorted hotly. "You should be grateful I helped you at all. If you found my help so insulting, then throw the money back in my face. Tell me you made it entirely on your own, without relying on anyone's dirty money. But you didn't, did you? The truth is, even with your powerful father Victor backing you, you still needed me and Maya to land your projects. Without our help, you're just a failure." The more I spoke, the paler Chloe's face became, but she stubbornly gritted her teeth. You were born with a silver spoon. You wouldn't understand." "This has nothing to do with birth circumstances," Maya suddenly chuckled, cutting her off smoothly as she got to her feet beside me. "If you keep blaming everything else for your shortcomings, Chloe, even if you had been born into our family, nothing would change. Just look at the situation now. Despite finding your real father, you still have to sell yourself and rely on others for opportunities." Maya's eyes were filled with undisguised disdain, completely unapologetic. It was clear she was prepared for this confrontation. As Chloe, consumed by a fit of uncontrollable rage, pulled the trigger, aiming directly at me, Maya shoved me forcefully to the side. Multiple shots rang out in quick succession. I heard the sickening sound of bullets tearing through flesh, saw blossoms of blood bloom darkly in the dim light. Warm drops splashed onto my face. All I could see was an endless field of red, and then Maya's eyes slowly closing as she collapsed. "Maya!" The hospital room reeked of disinfectant, a smell so strong it completely overwhelmed Maya's usual subtle lemongrass scent. I sat rigidly by her bedside, gritting my teeth so hard my jaw ached. "Are you crazy or something?" I demanded, my voice hoarse. Her eyelashes fluttered open, and she looked up at me, her gaze surprisingly gentle, almost lingering. "Sorry," she whispered weakly. "Back there. I just wanted to try something out." She paused, taking a shallow breath. "After all the efforts we've made, trying to break free from that inevitable force you described, I wanted to see if your past life's ending would still play out regardless." That's why she had deliberately provoked Chloe, pushing her buttons until she snapped and fired the gun at her. In fact, as Maya later explained, the undercover police officers, noticing someone missing during the chaotic takedown inside the hall, had chased after Chloe into the garden. Just as Chloe fired her shots, they had pulled their triggers simultaneously, hitting Chloe's hand and temple. If the original storyline's powerful influence couldn't truly be shaken off, Maya reasoned, she would surely have died from Chloe's gunshots, just as she had in my memories of the past. But instead, the shots had only grazed her shoulder. Painful, yes, but not lethal at all. "But seriously," I choked out, "did you have to risk your own life just to test it?" This way was the most foolproof, she insisted softly. Her lips were pale and colorless from the blood loss, but her eyes didn't leave mine for a single moment. If I had really died, she continued, her voice barely audible, Chloe would undoubtedly get the death penalty for murder. You wouldn't have any possibility of future contact with her, and you wouldn't be sent to a mental institution. You would live your peaceful life, Alex. She paused again, her voice feather-light as it drifted into my ear. I promise you, I'd never let the things you dreamed about actually happen to you. I stared down at her, words completely stuck in my throat. I couldn't speak. She was definitely more than a little bit crazy, gambling with her own life like that. But if she won the gamble, it proved that we could escape the suffocating shadow of our past lives. If she lost, her death would still theoretically guarantee a safe, albeit lonely, future life for me. I remembered the forced injections from my past life, the terrifying fall from the tall hospital building. I remembered Maya's tearful gaze in that dimly lit room at Chloe's wedding, just before the flames erupted. I remembered Maya's constant, unchanging lemongrass scent that had followed her through both lives. Overcome by a tidal wave of emotion, I grabbed the collar of her hospital gown, leaned in, and bit her lip hard, tasting the metallic tang of blood mix with her skin. Now, I said fiercely, my voice thick. Your life is mine. Understand? Okay, Maya whispered back, a soft smile gracing her pale lips. It's yours. Her once cool, guarded eyes were now filled with a warmth and tenderness I hadn't seen before. Everything I have is yours, Alex. In the days that followed Maya's recovery, she managed to subtly leverage her previous interactions with Julian, uncovering crucial information from him about his father's operations. She passed this intel anonymously to the police, aiding them in busting a multi-billion-dollar international weapons trading ring, masterminded by Victor. Because of their extensive involvement in organized crime, murder, and illegal firearm possession, Chloe, Victor, Julian, and several of their key associates were eventually sentenced to death. All the guests who had attended Julian's birthday party, along with anyone connected to Victor's secret network, faced thorough investigation. Daniel, though not directly involved in the major crimes, received a 2-year prison sentence for his auxiliary role in some of Chloe's earlier fraudulent activities. With all the main antagonists removed from the picture, Alex's, subsequent redevelopment project continued smoothly, now in legitimate and transparent cooperation with Maya's company. This new phase of work naturally gave me more opportunities to spend time with Maya. However, no matter how playfully she tried to tease or provoke me, I always maintained a straight face and firmly refused her advances. Your injuries aren't fully healed yet, I'd remind her sternly. We can talk about other things after you're completely recovered. I couldn't help but add, one evening, seeing her sip wine. Drinking wine with a recent gunshot wound? Do you have a death wish? Maya, soaking wet in her long silk robe after stepping out of the shower, opened her eyes, which were still slightly clouded by a tipsy haze from the wine. She smiled up at me, her expression indulgent yet resigned. Sorry, Alex. She was definitely teasing me again. I swallowed hard, trying to maintain my composure. Feigning indifference, I tossed a fluffy towel towards her. Wash yourself properly. I'm heading out. In the steam-filled bathroom, I had barely taken a few steps towards the door when I heard a distinct heavy thud from behind me. After a moment's hesitation, my worry for Maya won out over my resolve. I turned back quickly, rushing towards the sound. Just as I reached her, she pulled me forward, and we both tumbled into the huge round bathtub with a loud splash. Water flew everywhere. Maya! I couldn't help but scream in protest. My custom suit! It just arrived last week! She murmured softly near my ear, her breath warm and close. I'll buy you 10 more tomorrow. Her kisses landed on my lips, tender yet demanding, until a subtle stinging pain from her healing shoulder forced her to pull away reluctantly. Her warmth drifted lower, exploring beneath the water's surface. "Maya," I breathed out, my voice trembling uncontrollably. But her heated kisses swallowed my protests whole. Guided entirely by her touch, I felt myself plunging into a humid, uncharted tropical jungle. A sudden rain, surprisingly cool against my heated skin, streamed down as we sank into deeper waters. We tangled together until late into the night, and I finally fell asleep in her arms, utterly exhausted but content. In a hazy state between sleep and wakefulness, I dreamt again. I wasn't sure if it was the past or the present this time. In the dream, Chloe hadn't appeared in our lives yet. I wore my old high school uniform. I found a love letter from a girl I barely knew tucked into my backpack. The scene shifted abruptly, like a jump cut in a movie. The same girl stood huddled with a group of rough-looking thugs, her eyes filled with malice. "So what if he rejects me?" she sneered. "Once I lure him out and spike his drink, we'll all have our way with him." The scene shifted again. The next day, on her way to school, the girl was hit by a speeding car, breaking her leg severely. In the stark, white, sterile hospital room, Maya entered, her face completely emotionless. "This is just a warning," she stated calmly, looking down at the injured girl. "If you have any more thoughts like that about Alex, who knows what might break next time?" The dream faded, leaving me with a profound understanding. Maya's fierce protectiveness, her willingness to act ruthlessly to keep me safe, hadn't just started after Chloe arrived or after my death in the past life. It had always been there, a constant hidden undercurrent beneath her cool exterior, long before I ever realized the depth of her feelings or the dangers lurking around us.